Adobe was willing to pay double Figma's valuation at the time and 50 times its annual recurring revenue.
Shares of Adobe moving higher by 4% on the back of earnings and a revenue beat.
For almost 4 decades, Adobe was untouchable. Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere Pro, After Effects, we know it all. These weren't just apps, these were the global defaults. If you opened a studio or got a design job, you learned Adobe, you paid Adobe, and you lived inside Adobe. Nobody questioned the monopoly because there was just no right alternative. But out of nowhere, a tiny startup walked in with a browser window with the audacity to change it all and just asked one question: why isn't design on the internet yet? And that one question is what forced Adobe into the most embarrassing incident of the tech world.
We're trying to make it so you're able to go from idea to design to production and really take people through the entire life cycle of creating digital products. And we started off with a design tool. The entire period of the acquisition, we kept our foot on the gas. And that's why we're able to, 6 months afterwards, after it's broken off, have an event like this and announce a ton of stuff on stage at Config, not just our AI features, but tons of improvements to our core Figma design editor and also a whole new slides product.
So today, let's break down what exactly happened between Adobe and Figma, and more importantly, what's coming next, because the next chapter is even crazier. Adobe built an empire, but the world changed behind their backs. Let's go back. Adobe's strength was built in the desktop era. Install your software, save a life. Export the final version, email it, pray it does not corrupt. That was the whole flow of how Adobe operated. For years, and nobody complained. But slowly, design started shifting. Teams became global, startups started moving super fast. Developers wanted a real-time handoff. Product updated every week instead of every year. But Adobe never evolved with this shift. They kept on adding features, they still are doing, but never actually fixed the workflow. It took 5 major steps just to show someone a small change. Your files were just sitting in your laptop, in your local host, and everything was still dependent on one single designer saving the life. Adobe built a software which is now being outdated every single day with new advancements made. And here's where our star of the show, Figma, comes in. Figma wasn't supposed to exist. Dylan Field, the founder, was a 20-year-old kid in the States fascinated by WebGL, a browser graphical technology. His thinking was, if games can run inside a browser, why can't design? The idea sounded ridiculous at that time. Who the hell will design in a Chrome browser? Imagine telling a designer in 2014 that they will run the entire design software in a Chrome tab. Anyone would get slapped. But Dylan just surprisingly never cared. He wasn't trying to build a better Photoshop. He was trying to build a better process. A real-time collaboration, multiple cursors, zero installation, instant sharing. A design file that could live in any device which was online on the internet. Figma was not just here competing with their smaller tools, but the whole Adobe ecosystem. And then that's where the migration for us designers begin. First came the students. Figma was fast, free, and you had control over everything. And you know what? Students don't care about legacy. So universities started switching quietly. Bootcamps were switching, all the major universities were using them. And that's where India enters. Indian design community was on a boom when Figma happened for all of us, and we all know the time back in 2019, 2018. Good old days. Coming back, if you're building a product, you need feedback loops. Figma made iteration more than 50% faster than any other tool that was existing then. Companies like Uber, Stripe, Netflix, Microsoft, people from every big giant tech giant company started migrating towards Figma. But this is where the nail in the coffin actually happened. Developers. Developers don't care about design aesthetics, right? Sad. They care about handoff. And Figma's inspect mode, their dev mode, all of that shipped things super fast and made a life of a developer very, very easy. This had never happened before. The two opposite ends of a tech startup or any other startups, which is design and devs, which we all know the relations were never ever right. Figma just snapped those different poles together as if it was nothing. Adobe lost the designers, then the developers, and then the developers who really drived the big companies. And then that's where Adobe realized we are finished in the UI UX game. So Adobe did the only thing that a monopoly can do. They tried to buy Figma as a threat. Sort of. $20 billion. Half in cash, half in stock, by the way. One of the biggest acquisitions in the tech world that we are living in today. Adobe thought this is a mic drop moment, let's go and celebrate. Figma is now ours. But that's where the whole design community revolted. People were angry, memes exploded. The entire internet believed that Adobe will kill Figma, supposedly they have been doing with all the other startups that they have acquired. I'm not going to take names. You are curious enough to do your own research. And while the public was panicking, regulators were watching. These are the feds and the regulators of US government. They said this is not a partnership. This is the monopoly buying out their last competition. For over a year, the deal was investigated. Adobe defended it. Figma also defended it because they wanted to get an exit and leave. Dylan was ready for the deal, surprisingly. And then the verdict happened. Deal rejected. Blocked in the UK, EU, and the US regions just like that. Adobe had no way out. And remember that breakup clause? Adobe now had to pay Figma $1 billion as a breakup fee. $1 billion we're talking about. Billion with a B. That's how many digits? 10 digits. Figma walked away with $1 billion rich. Figma walked away with $1 billion richer. Adobe walked away looking like a desperate tech giant, which called themselves Monopoly. Because they just funded the growth of their competitor, the biggest competitor that we all know, Figma. But here's where the story gets even more crazier. Most companies would relax after $1 billion, right? Figma did the opposite. They went on the offense mode. In 2025, we all know what Figma did. They launched the most aggressive lineup of different tools which destroyed every other creative tool to ever exist. This was the historic moment in the design field. This wasn't just an update. This became a whole new platform for any sort of design things that you want to create. Not just UI UX but graphic as well. Figma Make, Create, Slides, we all know the list. All of these together form one thing. Figma is becoming the operating system for bigger teams. Not just a UI tool, not even prototyping, but an ecosystem. Literally an ecosystem. Adobe has no equivalent at this time. This is where the war is headed. Here's the real future nobody's talking out loud. Design tools won't compete on features. They'll now compete on workflows. Adobe will always remain the king of the creative field, be it video and the graphic control that we have over all the photos that we can find. Figma, on the other hand, will probably have a hold over UI UX and prototyping more, for sure. But I have been personally using Figma for the past 2 years for all the graphic design work. Even the thumbnail over here of the video is done in Figma. All the graphic design work have been done on Figma by my team. So I don't know where exactly Adobe is still the king, but for sure it completely depends on the user. But the real battle coming in all of this is who can reduce the distance between the idea, design, and shipping. Whoever compresses the timeline wins. And right now, in my opinion, Figma is way closer in that war. Well, I personally find Figma not just as a tool, but a very big marketing company as well, with all the things that they have been doing, all the events that they have been doing everywhere, their configs, which happens in the US and in Asia. They're all friends of Figma communities where events keep happening. They just opened a brand new office in India and they are seeing a very big boom in India. That's why they want to capture the whole Indian market before Adobe strikes their shot. This was never a story of who's better. It's a story of how startup questions difficulties, how startup questions the rules, challenge a monopoly head on, do a fair fight, collecting all the resources and investing them in the future of the business. This was the whole amazing case study formulated by us at Designer. If you're still here in the video, please consider subscribing to the channel because we definitely want to make more deep dives and case studies like this. Not just that, we want to do tutorials, we want to cover a lot of AI tools. I got so many comments on making an in-depth video on the last video. So for sure, full on in-depth video on AI tools, MCPs is on the way. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. This was Vansh Agarwal. Peace out.